Welcome to Night Shadows. I'm Stewart Best. Where the paranormal is normal. Where that which you thought you knew, you didn't. And where the future can be known, if you know exactly where to look.
Well, hello, folks. This is Larry Taylor. I'm certainly not Stewart Best, but we're trying to get the show on the road here today. This, of course, is Friday, May the 26th, and we're moving towards June. I have with me Dorothy Crothers today, and Dorothy, hopefully we can level out. It seems like there's two sounds going. I don't know if people on the other end are hearing it, but it sounds like there's a short delay in some of the very same things that we're talking.
Let me try unmuting and muting again. I'll do it to me first. Okay, let's see if that helps.
Okay. That seems to be better. No, it's still here, and I hope other people aren't. You know, we apologize, folks, if this we're having some feedback problems or something, but Stewart should call in a bit. We're waiting on him. My name is Larry Taylor. That's Dorothy Crothers with me tonight. And we're basically coming on and sharing. We've been having some difficulties. Stewart and I, I got cyber attacked first, and then recently he got cyber attacked. And so we've been having some problems. If you watch the news lately, and Dorothy, I know you've kind of kept up the news some. What do you think's going on with this overseas trip of Donald Trump, and where does this seem to be going?
With Donald, I think he's got Father's backing all the way, and I think we're just seeing all this stuff be revealed that's always been there that we didn't know about. And I think it's going to be taken care of, is what I think.
I'll tell you what, I just have to absolutely, I have to absolutely agree with you. I did hear by some information out of the Middle East that, of course, we realized Donald Trump had a really exceptional greeting in Saudi Arabia, but then also I watched him as, a very somber face. He walked up to the Western Wall in Jerusalem while he was in Israel, and I saw him pass a note into an opening in the wall, and then later when he was talking to the Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, he made the very interesting statement that I had an experience. That was really an experience there at the Western Wall. He wouldn't enlarge on it. He wouldn't talk any more about it, but he remarked about an experience, and I find that really telling. And then, of course, after Israel, he went to the Vatican, and then NATO, and then, of course, the G7, et cetera, et cetera. But I have to agree with you, Dorothy. I think that heaven's watching out for Donald Trump, or he wouldn't even be where he is today. And if he was where he is today, he would not probably have lasted up until now. But it's very interesting, and as we watch him come back to America, I'm really watching very closely, Dorothy, the fact that he may come back and make some changes. In the White House, in the U.S. government, make some moves against deep state. I think we're really in an unprecedented time, and I totally agree, Dorothy, that one thing he's done, if nothing else, and I've said this on a few shows before, is he has really opened up something in America that has let the most putrid governmental overstretch, and over the years, what government has done to the people of this country, it is pouring out into the open such as never before. What's your thoughts on that?
I have to agree. We've all been talking about how we've been awakened to the reality of what goes on in the United States and its government, and now we see it just getting into the mainstream media is going crazy. All this nonsense about Russia, the leaking. My goodness, I want to go down to the White House and box some ears. I really do, because they're just misbehaving so much.
I agree. Go ahead.
But yeah, it's some of the stuff that's coming out is harder to take than other stuff, like the pedophilia. I mean, that's really difficult to take, but it has to be done with. And I'm so glad the American Christians finally got up off their pews and stood up and voted properly. That just pleases me to no end, because as a nation, we really deserved Hillary Clinton. So I'm very grateful for the grace of God. Very grateful.
Oh, I totally agree with you. One of the most interesting things I've found recently is the fact that, the pedophilia situation is ongoing, the investigations are ongoing, and people are being rounded up around the world, actually. And I'm so shocked that the media in this country, it's almost a non-subject. They just won't cover it. And then on the other hand, not only cover the pedophilia rings, et cetera, just a few alternative media will even touch that. But recently, the DNC staffer that was murdered in Washington, D.C., about election time this year, Seth Rich, when Fox began to cover that, they immediately had to shut down any information involving that investigation. And the family had hired private investigators to work on the case. And then, of course, WikiLeaks founder, Julian Assange, he came out and admitted that the DNC hacker really just revealed all that information to WikiLeaks that they put out about the DNC and all the people involved in that. And so there is one station, however, covering it, every day. I mean, every hour they have another piece on it, and that is a news station that I don't know if you've seen it, or I think you've read it on my blog, but it's called One America News. It's actually OANN, One America News Network, and the website is www.oann.com. And people ought to watch a little bit of that news. I don't know who's behind it, but it appears to be very balanced. And they actually say, we just have news. We don't have opinions. But they are covering the Seth Rich murder. They're covering a lot of this information, and including some of the pedophilia stuff that's going on that nobody else is covering. And one thing that they haven't done, and I get your opinion here, Dorothy, that one of the things that Donald Trump is not getting any credit for is his push on the pedophile rings.
I wish he was more outspoken about his, role in that. I mean, I know he's using Jeff Sessions and the Department of Justice to really start coming down on things, and I think that's put a whole new tenor in Washington. Is Jeff Sessions is really saying this is not acceptable behavior about a lot of things. The FBI, are they worth anything anymore? I mean, do we need them if they're not going to do investigations?
Well, I would say that's an excellent question, Darcy, because of the fact that I don't remember anything but, during 8 years of Obama, all we heard were investigations. However, when I was in law enforcement, if you had somebody investigated for years, that worked on investigation for years, that never cleared a case, that never had a case to come to conclusion, that never finished an investigation, he would have been fired years ago. So I haven't seen a lot the FBI has done over, especially the Obama years, that came to a conclusion of any kind. I never saw criminals arrested. And, it's so interesting. I believe that the FBI has become so politicized, totally political, that they are incapable of doing anything but covering up for certain individuals. Shall we say Obama? Shall we say Hillary? Shall we name lots of names that should be coming out and investigated and put in prison? And I hate to sound like a Donald Trump pep rally, okay? But a lot of these people that are breaking the law should go to prison. But the FBI doesn't appear to be in that mode. They appear to be in a political mode that I suppose you could say they've been neutered. Dorothy, what do you think?
Oh, I definitely agree they've been neutered, and I have to question the investigation skills of anybody who works in there at this point, because, like you said, that none of the investigations produce anything, and we all know that if people do not suffer consequences for bad behavior, they don't learn. That's why Bill and Hillary have gotten away with so much stuff. You know, they've never suffered the consequences. So they think it's okay to keep doing it.
Yeah, and it's, a matter of fact, after her last episode of investigations, and, you know, I've been in law enforcement for years, and I've worked a lot of casework. I've, actually worked a lot of district attorney investigations and, you know, presented evidence and built cases, et cetera, et cetera. And what James Comey laid out for Hillary was a classic case of culpability in a criminal episode. And then he said, but no prosecutor would prosecute it. Well, of course they wouldn't, because he didn't present it to a prosecutor. That doesn't take really a lot of smarts. They wouldn't prosecute it because they didn't present it to a prosecutor.
Exactly. And Stewart is here. I do want to ask you, Larry, before I go, what do you think about the leak about the Manchester information as a
Well,
cop?
that's really interesting. Yeah, that's really interesting. And let me run this by you real quick. And, Stewart, I'm glad you're here. Barry Rothman just did a new Torah code on May the 23rd, 2017. On the it's called the Torah code names Manchester, UK killer, and in that Torah code, let me read it to you. It's 11 in the matrix. There are 11 terms. Number 1, suicide. Number 2, abedi. Number 3, from Palestinians. Number 4, Iraq. Number 5, Ariana. Number 6, Grande. Number 7, attacks. Number 8, Trump. Number 9, in Israel. Number 10, Daesh or ISIS. Number 11, Libya. Now, you know, and Dorothy, hang on with us. We might want to ask you something else, but there's a Torah code that just literally lays out the Manchester, UK or England terrorist bombing. I mean, it lays it all out just as clear as can be. What do you think, Stewart? And welcome to the program.
Well, thank you. Yeah, these Bible codes are getting more and more accurate all the time. And I think they're learning to ask the right questions. They're putting themselves into a situation, asking the right questions, so they're getting much better response from the code itself. But this has just begun. They just declared today, somebody told me they just declared a war against the West. Is that true?
Yeah, they have declared it. They're calling it a Ramadan go-to-war warning, I suppose, is what's coming out. But they are declaring a worldwide war. ISIS is, against, I suppose Europe and of course the UK is really in trouble. The UK now has information that there's another bomb. And they haven't located it. They've been rounding up people for 2 or 3 days, and that's beside the leaks, of course, coming out of what appears to be our intel agencies, which are undermining Trump as he's overseas trying to make these deals and gather a force to fight ISIS. This is ongoing, so it's ratcheting up a little bit more.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, Dorothy, thanks a lot for taking over while I was, how do I say, busy moving.
You are quite welcome. No problem.
So anyway, Larry, I have been out of pocket, been out of the news area, been busy for the last almost week. What's cooking out there?
Well, one thing that we've got going on, speaking of ISIS, is ISIS now has came out and made a threat against Las Vegas sometime during the Memorial Day weekend. Yeah. And Las Vegas is now in the process of ramping up all of its anti-terror capabilities and preparing for an event. And so, and of course, on Memorial Day, Las Vegas runs 24/7 for 4 days straight, and crowds upon crowds upon crowds of people. So people are really concerned about that.
Well, yeah, they're going to hit us. I don't think there's any question. It's just a question of where. And, they might say Las Vegas when they need somebody else, or someplace else in America. But, we've been kind of isolated from a lot of that, but I don't think that's going to continue. I think they are going to ramp it up here. Because to me, it's all part of the New World Order. Got to have your chaos. You've got to have your terror quotient in order to herd the people into giving up more and more freedoms and ramping up the security. What do you think?
Oh, exactly. There's a great concern, though, and I've watched some of the intel people that are retired talking on Fox today, and they're very disturbed about these leaks that are coming out of not only the White House, and, of course, everybody knows a lot of the White House is a lot of former Obama people still there. And, of course, they're concerned about the intel agencies that are also leaking this information. And it appears that from what most of the retired people are saying, that those people hate Donald Trump so bad they would risk destroying our own country just to bring him down. I mean, that is exactly how low this situation is in Washington, D.C. And you and I, Stewart, we've talked about what was in the inside the belt, lane for a long time. We know what Washington, D.C. has been for a long time, but I think it's never been exposed for the evil that we're seeing there now. It's simply they don't care about the American people. The American people are not a point in their everyday circumstances inside the Beltway.
Yeah, I don't think that this is a deal that has nothing, actually probably has nothing to do with Trump either. They're using Trump as a means to take the nation. The American people mean nothing. This is a coup attempt. I think it's a communist coup, and they're going to use whatever powers they can get their hands on to do it, like ISIS or like anybody else that they can round up to do us in. And, of course, Bible prophecy says we will be done in. That's the sad part. And any more Bible codes on Trump at all? Have anything come out new on him?
No, and I've been watching closely on that. Barry Rothman hadn't done any more on him. I do know that Richard Shaw was talking about some more additional Trump code information, but they're simply not releasing it right now from Glazerson and Haralick and Rips and all of those that are working on those codes. They're keeping them close to the cuff. And I really think, Stewart, the reason they're keeping them so close to the cuff is the fact that it has to deal a lot with the Middle East and Jerusalem.
Yeah, what I know the Sanhedrin had asked Trump to go to the Temple Mount and pray, but he didn't, did he? I never heard about that if he did.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Some of that, in Jerusalem, they didn't cover. Now, one thing I shared with Dorothy a while ago, and I don't think he was on yet, is the fact that I watched him very closely when he was at the Temple Mount, and he did have a very somber look on his face. They showed him some maps of something that we couldn't watch, we couldn't see, and then he went up to the Western Wall. all by himself. Everybody else was way back, and he put his hand on the wall, and he looked like he put a piece of paper. One time before, I think he had sent a message to the Western Wall, but I think he inserted something in a hole in the wall there, which a lot of people do. I don't know what it was on it, but I do remember later on in the day when he arrived at Netanyahu's home, he shared with Netanyahu that he had an experience at the Western Wall. Now, he did not enlarge on that, and he did not explain any information about that other than to say he had an experience there. So now, whether anything happened other than that, I don't know. I haven't heard any more information. They're kind of quiet right now on anything involving the temple, any pronunciations he may have made. We don't know what the note said or what he had written on the note. There's a lot of information we don't have that they've carefully kept away from us. But we do know that never before has a president of the United States, sitting president especially, flown directly from Riyadh, Saudi Arabia to Jerusalem. That's never happened before. That's totally historic. And I shared that. The reason for that, I watched a professor that knew the past, the ancient times, very interestingly. And the reason that you can't fly from Saudi Arabia to Jerusalem or Israel directly is the fact that there is an old, I don't know whether it's a legend or what, but supposedly Muhammad got on a great bird and flew from Mecca to Jerusalem. And so since that occurred, and that's some type of incredible holy act according to their religion, the Islam religion, they have denied any man now, they have denied a man getting on an airplane and flying directly from Saudi Arabia to Israel. You cannot do it because of that ancient saying. And so this is what's interesting, Stewart, and I'd like your opinion here. Why all of a sudden, after all the time that nobody could make that flight, did the king of Saudi Arabia give permission to Donald Trump to get on Air Force One and fly directly from Riyadh to Jerusalem? It's unheard of.
That must mean they know something about Donald Trump that we don't know. But that never would have happened.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. And then, of course, he had the situation. He visited the Bethlehem, of course, and then he went to the Western Wall. I watched that very closely, and I could be wrong now, but I was going to say that it looked like to me he might have met with one of the Temple Mount Faithful or whatever, the Sanhedrin representative there that unfolded an incredible-looking map. It was really long, and talked to him, and while they were showing him the map, he was pointing towards the Western Wall in that direction. We were never able to see what they were explaining to him. You couldn't hear the talk. There was a rabbi there. I could see him and this other guy that I'm not sure who he was, but, that was after that then that Trump went up to the Western Wall, and then later at Netanyahu's home claimed he had an experience at that wall. I can't enlarge on it because I don't have the facts, but then, of course, he went to the Vatican, and one of the interesting things I saw at the Vatican, Stewart, was the fact that when he met with the Pope and was beginning to leave, he turned and you could hear him talking, and he told the Pope, yes, that he would not forget that. He said, I won't forget. Now, what that is, I don't have any clue.
Well, I think the one clue we all need to take away from all of this, we are very, very close to the big change, where the Lord is going to close down the church, and we're going under the law again, as the Lord takes up his controversy with Israel, the Abrahamic, Davidic, and the conclusion of the Palestinian covenants. I think this is what we're watching. Right under our nose, and of course the church basically is comatose and has no clue whatever as to what's going on, business as usual. But I think we are in for some shocks. I don't know what you think about that, but I think things from now until September, October is really a time to be watching what's happening. What do you think, Dorothy?
It's an interesting time to be alive. I think Trump's experience at the wall. Did you see the Kim Clemente prophecy about Trump?
No. Yeah.
Where he was putting someone in the office who was not a Christian, and we all know people can go to Christian churches for years and years and years and never become a Christian. But after he was in the office, he would have an experience and become a Christian. So that's what I thought of when Larry was telling that story. And I believe the paper asked for the prayer request that he put on the wall was asking for wisdom and to bless our nation and the military as well, which I found interesting. And
Well, that might be we've talked about actually a delay. If Hillary had gotten in, the FEMA camps would probably already be open and a lot of us would be in them. And so from that perspective, maybe there is a delay. You remember her Camp Joy that everybody had to, all adults had to attend I can't remember what she called it. Do you remember what that was, Larry? But she was actually talking about everybody had to go to a FEMA camp and get re-educated.
Yeah. Yeah, it was some kind of orientation into a new way of thinking, I believe, and that ought to scare the bejesus out of everybody.
Nobody made any comments about it when it occurred, and she was very forceful about it. It was in one of her speeches. So, she came right out and told everybody what was on her heart and what was on her mind, and that was FEMA camps and re-education so that we would understand communism better and accept it. And if we couldn't, I guess we were to be terminated. So, what else is cooking on the global zoo, Larry?
Well, what's really interesting is more threats coming out today of a possible EMP coming out of North Korea. They're very concerned. I was listening today to some, elite military people that have studied missile warfare, technology, etc., and they're saying that they're very concerned with this last test that North Korea did where that missile went so high. And they were indicating that you could put a low-yield nuke on one of those missiles just like the one they fired, and if they could arc it up and drop it anywhere, and America would really be under the influence of an EMP, and they're very concerned because we haven't really done any work to work our power grids or to protect them, and we're very vulnerable. And North Korea, of course, I don't know if you knew it, you've been busy, but, the other day there was an unknown object which they think was a drone. They really don't know. It came out of North Korea and crossed over into South Korea, and South Korea opened fire in the direction of it, and it went back into North Korea again with South Korea firing rounds into North Korea. So, and of course, I think on our last show, Stewart, you remember I said that very easily mannered guy that was the new president of South Korea that said he wanted to have dialogue with the North and China. He's come out now and warned his military that it looks like they were about to have a war with North Korea. So, I'm not sure this is going to be solved.
Well, according to the, Major Ed Dames, Dr. Doom, North Korea was going to open up with a nuke. Speaking about EMPs, is there anything going on with the sun?
Yeah, the sun right now has been flaring, and matter of fact, today or tonight, sometime we're supposed to get a glancing blow from a CME that was fired off a couple of days ago, and we've been getting a number of them recently. Augusto said that the proximity of what he called the destroyer and our own sun was in a there was having a gravitational difficulties right now, and that was causing our sun to really have bizarre behavior. And what Augusta was saying, I believe, if I heard him right, was that soon the destroyer would slingshot further away from the sun and then come around for another round that would really upset the planets. So, we're watching all that. And Stewart, it seems, too, more and more coming out and talking about, I remember what you said, when you first came on the show about people looking at this fall, end of summer and fall, but it appears that they are really concerned about some of them are concerned about a July, August, September situation, and especially the September, like the 23rd type scenario.
Yeah, we got that star sign, folks. Don't forget that star sign. That's a very weird sign, and the Bible says it's a tremendous sign. And it's like a lot of signs, though, Larry. They come and go. Nobody pays much attention to them. And then all of a sudden the snare is sprung and it's over. And there's something going on, or the Bible, Revelation chapter 12, wouldn't spend so much time on that and the destroyer at the same time. So it's interesting that Augusto thinks this is a slingshot and it'll be around again. Huh. Weird. Well, we're in interesting times, right?
Oh, absolutely. And I'll tell you what, Stewart, this last week or so, and especially the last few days, it's like our atmosphere in the part of the country where I'm at is supercharged. And there appears to be a lot of electromagnetic activity going on. We keep having problems, and lots of our power grid seems to be blinking a lot, and that could be the CMAs. We've been having a number of CMEs go by the last week or so, but that's supposed to have a glancing blow, I believe, tonight on the planet. But I've never seen weather this bizarre. We've had, we've had thunderstorms and storms and storms for months and months, and it's really they just could continue to rake the nation. And matter of fact, I don't know if you guys got it, Stewart, but Colorado just got a really incredible snowstorm.
Well, the bots made mention of a polar vortex in the middle of summer, and actually snow in the middle of summer. Well, I suppose they could have snow out there in the high mountains, but I don't think that's what they're talking about. I think they're talking about something much more bizarre, and they've been remarkably accurate lately. The farmers up here, they've got a few crops in, but they don't look good. It's really cold at night, and it's wet. So there's standing water in the fields, in a lot of these fields around here, and I don't think they're going to have much of a crop. It's beginning to look like the Joseph 2-year, and we're into the first year to sort of where it's partial harvest. So I don't know.
Absolutely. That's true, Stewart. And I know you've got friends, I believe, in Peru or Chile. And
yes.
a lot of our products that we get come from South America, especially Peru and Chile, as far as avocados, I guess, and a lot of our the stuff they're shipping in. But those countries, if you kept up with it lately, the South American countries, especially down on the end there, Chile and Peru, are really getting hammered with storms and more storms and landslides and floods. It's incredible.
Well, yeah, I don't think people realize it. This is going on globally. And this is a bad sign that we're in the middle of a major shift in climate, and that means a major shift in weather, and that means a major shift in food supplies, and that we are probably going into the latter end of what I've called stealth famine, and you have for a number of years. We've warned people about it to get ready because the Bible talks about a day's wages for just a loaf of bread, which is hyperinflation, most likely. if you can even get a loaf of bread.
Oh, absolutely. And I do know that Stan and Holly Dale have been warning a number of years about a coming famine, and also about the food supplies that are going to just suddenly dry up on the shelves and be unavailable. And I think we're beginning to see a little bit of that. I've noticed, especially in stores locally, and I think you have and others have, Dorothy I think has, that they're rearranging shelves where it doesn't look like there is anything missing, except it's only an arrangement. It's for your eyes only type of shelving.
Yeah, you reach up and you take 2 cans and there's nothing left behind it. Whereas before they used to be all the way back. Yeah, there's something going on there, and I don't know. Another thing I wanted to ask, somebody asked me about Yellowstone, that they had heard that there was much more activity out there. Have you heard anything about that?
I am hearing more activity. I've actually posted over the last couple of months more activity that I can glean up. Now, we're aware that Stan Dale was one of the ones that, said that they had turned off or made unpublic the seismographs, readings, and, you could used to follow that all the time, but now it's unavailable pretty much. But I have noted there seems to be an increase in earthquake activity that is going on, and there are more warnings about, they're saying a magma dome is a lot bigger under Yellowstone than they had even imagined to start with. And at the same time, we can talk about Mount St. Helens, too. You remember Red Elk, talked about that. And matter of fact, he almost was at the Mount St. Helens that time it went off. But to go, I think, in that area where the guys that had the cabins or whatever it was that wouldn't leave,
yes,
they made a movie about it. They actually made And Red Elk talked about that, and then he warned, I believe, on one of your recordings that Mount St. Helens was going to blow again. Well, guess what? I've seen 2 or 3 sources the last week or two that are indicating it really unstable increases in not only magma, but also the earthquake swarms that are occurring under Mount St. Helens as we speak.
Wow. Well, he said it would blow this time to the west. The first time it blew to the east, but he said this one's going to be much bigger and will blow out to the west. He even said that the weather was going to be beautiful when it happened. That's what he saw. But he used to go out and around the, I think he called it the Three Sisters. There's something like that out there. There's a bunch of volcanoes, of course, out there. But the one thing that he did say that almost sounds so bizarre you could hardly believe it, but that's what he said the Lord showed him, that Mount Rainier blew the third part of Mount Rainier totally off. It went up into the air maybe half a mile or a mile, and then it turned around and came back down and plugged the hole that it had made. And we do know, I know mountain climbers, I've spoken to them, and they say Mount Rainier is rotten. I mean, it's just sitting there waiting to go. But what he said was the shock wave would be the devastating part of that. And it was kind of interesting that he also said that when this kind of moon-shaped object came through and bounced off the atmosphere, that the shock wave would be what would destroy buildings and everything else that, that happened to be in the way of that. So, interesting times, I guess. What else is cooking around the world?
Well, I was just going to mention right there at the end there, you're talking about that, and ironically, Red Elk's revelations on that moon-like object or whatever, it almost parallels Dr. Doom, Ed Dames's, viewing that he did, where he saw that same type of object come in.
Yes, yep. I think it's the same thing, and I think they just witnessed it from different perspectives, but that was remote viewed, and Red Elk's was, as he said, a vision from Papa, as he called the Lord. He always called the Lord Papa. So he said, it's one thing to get kind of a tweak from the Lord, but America is going to get the switch and get hammered really, really hard. So I think it's going to start very suddenly. We already are seeing all kinds of judgments. It's just that people aren't recognizing them as a judgment. But we had a tornado up here, and these kind of things are gonna just start hammering the United States all over the place. What do you think?
Well, I'll tell you what, we've certainly had a lot of tornadoes down here, and they went, through, I know they've hammered pretty bad, Arkansas, Missouri, Kansas, down into Louisiana, of course, Texas, and moved east, and, the weather has got so violent, and it seems like it's more violent all the time, and, Stewart, I don't remember going into a spring and a summer. We're having a lot of winds here, and of course, people will say, well, March winds, but you don't have March winds around the 1st of June normally.
Not normally, no.
Yeah, everything is so out of kilter that it's almost like, Stewart, that people, that for a long time said everything was just like it had always been. Now they've quit even talking about it because I think it frightens them a little bit because they really don't have an excuse anymore because it is so bizarre now that they don't give an answer and they just try to stay away from even the subject of such matters. So it's like America almost is going into self-imposed isolation of the facts. And I speak that politically as well as climate-wise.
Yeah, and if you listen to people, old-timers who've been around for 80, 90 years, and if you listen carefully, they are saying, this is a whole lot different than what it was before. And, of course, we're probably entering in what the Book of Enoch talked about. I believe it's in chapter 79 of the Book of Enoch, where it talks about how the seasons begin to get all mixed up. The birds get all mixed up. Everything starts to get slightly out of kilter, and then it just gets worse and worse. Which, if we have snow in the middle of summer, like the bots are saying, would be probably a good indication something has changed.
Yeah. You had asked what else is going on. Well, of course, I told you about the new warnings, from ISIS and the threats from ISIS, the threat in Las Vegas this weekend. And, of course, New York's on high alert. And at the same time, they had an ISIS attack or an attack on the Coptic Christians again in Cairo and slaughtered, 26 of them. And they seem to be, according to some of the experts, that ISIS is now ramping up a global jihad. In other words, bombings. And of course, one thing is very true, that we continue to hear this lone wolf stuff. There is no lone wolf stuff. All of these that are doing the damage are being orchestrated from a leadership somewhere, and also from those that enable them to do it and assist them in doing it. So we can forget this lone wolf. There are no lone wolves. These are a terrorist organization that just they actually have global feelers.
Well, I think what they're doing is, at the same time they're ramping this up. This is the globalists doing it. The Bible talks about the rich men of the earth. And then they talk about how these people go in, they stir up all kinds of trouble, they set tribe against tribe, which they're doing right here in America. They're setting up for race wars. You can see it on the media if you know what you're looking for. They're always trying to just stir up all kinds of trouble. But at the same time, by going into this lone wolf situation, they can then begin to, how do I say, collect data and do their thing on any individual they just happen to target. And I think this is where this is going. the lone wolf now is a terrorist that is related probably to Islam in some way or another. However, that can easily change, can't it? To Christians, to people who believe in the Bible and motherhood and apple pie. And if we had a delay, which I'm thankful for, because I really do believe that Hillary was ready to open up. They were getting ready to do it. And the Lord said, I don't think so, not right now. But I don't know how much of a delay we're going to get. Remember David Wilkinson in his prophecy said there would be a last kind of a death wail where it would seem like things were getting better. They were pushing back on pornography. They were pushing back on all this other stuff that they're doing. And then all of a sudden the floodgates would open up and we would come crashing down.
I think you're right. I believe that was David Wilkerson that put your trumpet to your mouth or something like that. That book,
yes.
He wrote two of them. He had one, and then he wrote another one, a sequel somewhat, that had some of that same data and some of that same language that was shocking, in scope about America. And he wrote that, Stewart, years ago. I mean, that was many years ago when he wrote that first message. And, of course, people read that and were shocked, and then they just let it drift away, and nobody talked about it. You and I have talked about what he wrote for a number of years now, and it seems like a lot that he wrote is really beginning to come together now in this time frame. I do know, and I was going to ask your kind of opinion on this, I did hear today that, of course, Jared Kushner, who's, I guess, the senior advisor right now for Trump and over there with Trump on his trip, they say there's an FBI scrutiny that's going on against Jared Kushner and in the Russia possibilities, and they're going into that. And at the same time, there is reports now that Trump has hired an exceptional attorney and setting up a situation at the White House to handle all of these rumors and reports that are coming against him, and just to continue for him to go back. He's preparing to come back to America in the midst of that massive disinformation storm from the media and the left and the Democrats and the Republican establishment that are all working to get him out of office. But there are some that have said that he had a plan to hopefully last one more year. He was going to come back and let other ones that he's hired work on the problems that are, and really they were actually saying, and Newt Gingrich said last night, he said the White House of Donald Trump is literally under siege from everyone. And so there appears to be a plan, though, that he has put together to actually come back to America and maybe last another year. I mean, we don't know.
Well, he is very brilliant. I was reading an article about him. His IQ, a lot of people, I don't know what IQ's is. Mine is probably minus 20, but he has an IQ of 156, and they were rating him as just below one other president. But it's almost genius level, and he's well-versed in lawsuits. He has they had I think it was like 3,200 lawsuits.
Wow.
So this guy's he's not naive when it comes to legal battles, which of course he wouldn't be. When you build an empire like he has built, he's going to be challenged at about every corner by everybody else who wants to make a buck. So he's not stupid, let's put it that way. And he probably knows a whole lot more than we think he knows. And certainly he has to know about the deep state. And he had to know that if he tried this, they could kill him and kill his family.
That's very true. Yeah, I think you're exactly right. And what's ironic is from day one, basically, the lawsuit started, and all the judges, the federal judges appointed by Obama, and even some from previous administrations, they've come out to slam him and hit him and try to stop everything. And it shocked me a little bit because he was being what appeared to be lackadaisical or really too calm in as they would thrust these lawsuits over and over, trying to stop even like his temporary travel ban that he was working on. And it was like every time that they did it again and again and again, he said, "Oh, it's okay, it's all right, we'll win in the end," And so I guess that comes from he knows how it works.
Well, I think one of the reasons everybody hates him is we could put it on a cruder level, I suppose, but they're all feeding off the pig trough, and he's kicked it over, and they can't feed on it anymore. So all the little pigs are losing their money train, and they don't like it. And they don't like what he's doing, and they'll stop at nothing just to put an end to it if they can. So anyways, it's going to get really, really interesting, I think, these next few months. What do you think?
Oh, I think you're exactly right. Now, also at the same time, the Fox was bringing out this Seth Rich, the DNC staffer that apparently, according to Julian Assange, gave them all the DNC information that they used during the election from WikiLeaks. And of course, he was shot in the head in Washington D.C. And now they've begun some type of investigation in it, and they're beginning to find out all types of mysterious things. However, there's been a big push to shut up Fox. Matter of fact, Sean Hannity was one of the main ones that was pushing the envelope on telling people about this. Of course, mainstream media, I don't think you could turn any page on mainstream media and find the report. But now Fox literally has shut down the Seth Rich talk and actually threatened Sean Hannity, and he's gone on vacation now, and they don't know if he's gone like O'Reilly or the other ones, or hopefully he'll be back. But I have noted that this One American News that I talk about all the time, OANN.com, they are carrying every hour more information on the Seth Rich investigation. So it's coming out. It's literally leaking out. That I remember some time back you talked about people begin to be assassinated, and this just appears to be one more of those cases.
Yeah, I think that's a Hopi prophecy that government would begin. Well, I'm sure it's all related to Pedogate, actually. They are desperate to not allow that to come out into the open to the point where the American people are going to do something about it, which they don't seem to be doing anything about it, I guess. But, yeah, this is going to get more and more. I was listening to Rush Limbaugh this morning on the radio in the car when we were transporting stuff, and he said something about, some guy called in and said, "Well, I don't see any difference anymore between CNN, ABC, NBC, MSNBC, and Fox News. I'm very disappointed in Fox News. They're making a turn to the left." And that's what's going on. They're getting rid of all of the ones that are really the conservative, popular talk show hosts, like Hannity, like Tucker Carlson, that sort of thing.
Yeah, we are seeing that, and that's why I've been trying to tell people about One American News. It seems to be carrying it. It's really carrying the news, and they do state on that channel. It's on DirecTV. You can pick it up on DirecTV or probably find it, especially on the internet, at OANN.com. They actually say that every hour they give the news. They don't have any opinions, and they do include also some historical data in there that's very interesting. But I did hear that Bill O'Reilly now has gone to work under Glenn Beck in his television station. And so a lot of Fox News is beginning to have to move. They did say that the sons of, who's that, Murdoch?
Yes, they're liberal.
That caused the implosion, so to speak, of the, what was it, Sky News or something over in the UK. That they were now taking over. They were now taking over the new Fox News from Roger Ailes, who passed away recently too. And Fox News appears to be changing.
Yeah, the dad is conservative. The kids are very liberal. So I think that's probably what's happening at Fox News. So all of the mainstream news channels are virtually worthless. They all got their spin. This Rich situation, though, that I'm sure he was murdered, and the family has probably been threatened. You know, don't be making a lot out of this, or you get the same thing. The street where he was killed, they said there's never been a crime there.
Huh.
And he had everything on him. Nothing was stolen. Well, that's a classic hit. And
at the same time, Stewart, his computer, his cell phone, all his devices, etc., are all missing. And now I don't know whether this is rumor or real, but they're now saying that he was not dead at the hospital. As they said he was dead at the scene, but apparently that's maybe a discrepancy with that. So this, I guess you could say this is turning into one more conspiracy.
Well, you know, the Lord did say he was going to reveal all the, how do we call it, corruption? And that's a polite term for the United States, and particularly in Washington. So, you know, he's doing what he said he would do. He's going to reveal all of it. Unfortunately, most of the American people probably don't care too much.
Yeah, listen, I know the people I'd had a couple of emails from people wondering what happened to you and where we were. Did you want to take a couple of minutes and update people on what you're involved in?
Well, we had to move the office, and you don't realize how much junk, and that's what I'm calling it, that you accumulate. And it took about a week of solid moving, a little bit of and then we called in some hired movers who did a wonderful job. And setting up now, I'm going to probably be able to maybe do a show Wednesday. Hopefully, we'll have everything back up. But it just takes a long time. But the mail drop is still the same. And I'll get a number out for people, if, when we get one set up. But, yeah, there's a lot going on. And anyway, we're here, and we are, I'm worn out. And, it's when you're 77 years old and you got to move tons of stuff, it's just not fun. So kind of got wiped out, but I really appreciate you taking over the show here for me, and Dorothy especially for engineering that. Really keep the people updated on what we can. And I unfortunately had my website totally, not the website itself, where we post our BGR Best Global Report and Borderlands. It was the software that I used to make that website was removed. I go in there one morning, it's gone. Now, somebody really has to know what they're doing to cause that kind of a thing to happen.
Yeah, they take the software. Yeah.
So I can't
Dorothy,
post.
How much more time we got, Dorothy? I don't have a clock.
We got 10 seconds, says the Blog Talk lady.
Okay.
Say again?
Well, Stewart, I guess we're out of time. Thanks for coming on with me. And
okay.
And next week, we'll see people next week and get back on our radio shows. And thanks for listening, folks, to Night Shadows. Larry Taylor signing off. Thank you, Dorothy. Thanks, Stewart. Good night.
Thank you. Yep. Night.
Night.